So on GCF, we're going to factor this based on GCF. And what I do is I take the 20 and factor it. So that's 2 times 10. The 2 can't go any further. And 2 times 5. And then the 30 is 2 times 15. 2 can't go any further. And 3 times 5, right? So we have 2, 2, 5, and 3, 2, 3, 5. So I'm going to factor that out. 2 times 2 times 5 times x, because x squared would be x times x. And the 30 would be 2 times 3 times 5 times the x. And you circle things they have in common. So they each have a 2 in common. They each have a 5 in common. And they each have an x in common. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. So it's 5x.
That would be your GCF, which would be 10x. And then the stuff that didn't get circled is what you put in here, that sign, and the thing that didn't get circled over here. If everything, I'm going to make this equal to 0, if everything in the problem on one side gets eliminated, or as a GCF, you have to put a 1 in its place. So if like that 3 had been part of the GCF, then you would put a 1 over there, okay? If you FOIL that back, you get 20x squared minus 30x. So it's correct when you FOIL it back, when you give the 10x to everybody, okay? So now you have these two factors. This is a factor and this is a factor, and it has to be equal to 0 when you multiply them. Well, in order to have two numbers multiplied together equal 0, one of them has to be 0. So what I need to figure out is what number would make 10x equal to 0, and what number would make 2x minus 3 equal to 0.
Negative 10x and negative 2x plus 3.
No. You divide by 10, and x equals 0, because 0 over 10 is 0. And here you leave the x alone, so you add 3 to that side, so 2x equals 3. Divide by 2, x equals 3 halves. So these are your two solutions. That's where it hits the x-axis. Since 196, this is what you're going to look for. 196 and 225 are on the list, so check the list. You've got your notes. And all your variables are squared. And there's a minus in the middle. Remember, it has to be difference of two squares. Difference means a minus in the middle. So that means you can proceed with difference of two squares. You're going to do 2 parentheses, and you're going to find the square root of 196, which is 14. Square root of x squared is x. And then you put another 14x over here. And then the square root of 225 is 15. And you put in the middle a plus and a minus. That is how you factor for difference of two squares. Don't force it. It has to be people on this list. Okay? So now you make each one of those equal to 0. And here you move the 15 over here. So you have 14x equals negative 15. And to leave the x alone, you divide by 14. So x equals negative 15/14. That's 1. And this is going to be positive 15/14. 14x minus 15 equals 0. Add 15 over here. 14x equals 15. Divide by 14. X equals 15/14. Those are your two answers. That is your factoring. Now you key in the original problem and hit second window, negative 15 over 14, and then 15 over 14, and you should get zeros in the columns. If your equation looks like this, where there's numbers on both sides of the equal sign, you're going to move everything to the left side of the equal sign first and make it equal to 0 before you start. So this is going to be 16x squared minus 24x equals 0, because he crosses the bridge, he turns negative. And this would be a GCF one. It's not a perfect square one, because you got a plain x and you got a 24, okay? So let's go ahead and factor 16. 16 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then x and x. And 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 and x. So what is the greatest common factor here? How many 2's? How many 2's do they have in common on both sides of the minus? 3. Very good. So we circle 3 2's and 1x, right? And that's going to be 8x is what the greatest common factor is. And what's left in the parenthesis? What didn't get circled?
2x.
Minus 3. So now you make 8x equal to 0 and 2x minus 3 equal to 0 and x equals 0 and x equals 3/2.